Walker here from Psychologies magazine. Hello, Susie Walker from Psychologies magazine here. We've got the wonderful Charley Gavigan here from Brave Your Day. Charley is a therapist. She's a coach. She is a podcast host of Brave Your Day. And she was in our latest issue, all about how to survive heartbreak. So there she is in there. So thank you very much for giving us an interview. And I was so inspired by your story, Charley, that I really wanted to interview for Psychologies TV. So thank you so much for joining us today. Your title is The Art of Greater Living in Uncertain Times. Tell me about what is the art of braver living.
Well, hello everyone, and thank you so much, Susie, for having me on. Yeah, the art of braver living. The art itself, it's like an art form. It takes nurture, it takes practice, it takes commitment. And you know, for me, it's a lifelong project. How we don't get trapped, fall into ways of thinking, patterns of behaviour, how we kind of avoid situations, we shrink our lives down, and that we get captured and held captive by our innermost fears. And I think that for me, that's something very personal and why we decided to set up Brave Your Day. And it's ultimately about looking at how we can have a wider, more expansive experience in life. Because ultimately, a good life and a really interesting, you know, exciting life lives on the other side of what we're afraid of. Yeah. So for me, that really is important. It's about how we, you know, especially in these times of uncertainty. And as we know, and I know in your magazine, you talk about this often, the only certainty is uncertainty. Yeah. But I suppose COVID itself has kind of tripped us up and really brought that to the fore for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, we've got the wonderful Pema Chodron as our kind of, sorry, that way.
Yes.
As our kind of columnist at the back. And I mean, she talks about uncertainty all the time, and that yes. The only certainty is uncertainty. You touched on your own kind of personal journey about what inspired you. What inspired you to do this? Tell us a little bit of your backstory.
The backstory is that I have been frightened all my life, and it was really only in my late 40s that I realised just how petrified I was. I was really good at hiding it. I would give the illusion to other people that I had this sorted. You know, as somebody who's worked in counselling and psychotherapy and coaching all my life and been there with other people, given that illusion is you do wear that metaphorical mask, and feeling that it was difficult to reach out and get support. And when I had an experience in my 30s where my previous partner got really ill, had a lot of years where he was struggling, and I ended up nursing him at home until he literally died in my arms in a hospice. And I was 39, and it was almost like everything that I thought my life was about was rocked. And I had about 3 years where I probably was just constantly thinking about how I could take my own life, how I could end the pain. And then I met Colin, who is my partner in crime in Brave Your Day. And Colin also was someone who had his own issues, and we met, we came together. As he said at our wedding, we were two birds each with a broken wing who came together and made beautiful flight. And, you know, I feel like we've grown together, and that vulnerability and being open to, you know, being vulnerable and being vulnerable to my own fears, my own anxieties, my fear of losing Colin getting ill, me getting ill, just all these things helped to expand my view of what I wanted more of in my life. And I think at that point I got to 50 and I decided I had worked in the voluntary, in the charitable sector for about 30 years, and I decided it was time for us to step forward and to look at what we could offer the world, but also at a point in our lives when we were heading into kind of our middle years, we wanted to feel braver in our lives. And I will tell you the epiphany that I had. I was standing in Memphis, believe it or not, on my 50th birthday trip, which was amazing. And I was in the Civil Rights Museum, and the tears were just flowing, being part of a kind of experiential, exhibition and looking at what people had actually created and for themselves with courage, with belief, with passion, with justice. And I just thought, I want to create that. I want to have an impact in my world, in how I lead in my own life, but also with other people. And I came home and I asked for redundancy. And the rest is brave your day.
Yeah,
so
which, again, amazing. And not only are you sort of personally inspired, but then you want to make a difference. You want to be of service. And that's, again, very much of a Psychologies philosophy is, yes, we all are so passionate as coaches and therapists, and we know this inner work can completely transform your life. And then it's almost like evangelical, of like, let's share it. And that's what I love about the platform that we got. It's like, oh, go to, Brave Your Day, go and listen to that and listen to this. And it's because there's lots of ways into this work, isn't there? There's lots of ways in. And as I was saying to you earlier, I think the reason why your work resonates with me so much is that bravery and courage is one of my highest values. Many of us are frightened, and I feel scared all the time. I really do. And then I think, okay, well, what's the worst? I try to be slightly sensible, but what's the worst that can happen? And be brave. So how do we become aware of our fear, and how do we overcome it in the moment?
Well, for me, I think, and this is based on 35 years of working alongside, being on journeys with other people. One of the things I've learned is that for a lot of people, they actually have no comfort zone to leave. They were a bit like me. They were constantly in that, that area where they are anticipating, looking out for, sensing, feeling that something bad is going to happen. And I think that kind of level of anxiety, obviously, it creates its own physical problems and its emotional, mental problems in us as individuals. I think that for me, in terms of looking at the art of braver living and how we actually do that, I think first and foremost is about how we own our own story. And Psychologies does a beautiful job of that in terms of helping people to explore who they are. What story are you telling about yourself? And also, what words are you using to describe who you are and what's important to you? Because I know that from my own experience, I often told the story that had been told about me by other people, either in my family or colleagues or friends. And so it's about being able, once we own our own story and know what story we are telling congruently about ourselves, that's about taking up our power, and that's about liberation from fear as well. So you're showing up as yourself. I think, Brené Brown obviously talks and has written volumes about how you love and accept yourself. Carol Rogers talked about, accepting ourselves is the first way that we can actually move forward in any kind of transformation or change. So it's actually about looking at not just the light, but the dark within us, because we each have that. The bits that we're not particularly keen to shine a light on, and about being able to still accept the things that, I now accept the things where I made a massive fall and fail and, it went all wrong, recognizing that we are all flawed human beings. That's who we are. And still to work out compassion and love and kindness to ourselves. Thriving beyond just survival. That's absolutely huge. And looking at how we actually can create small ways in which we can move beyond just feeling like we're in survival mode all the time. Because obviously the whole emphasis of fear is that, you know, when we were way back in the day, we were constantly looking out for a bear or, you know, a jaguar or whatever was going to come at us. And so now we've internalized that, but we've got nowhere to take it. And so paying attention to your own body and recognizing where fear lives in you can also help you to understand yourself better.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'll just finish with the letting go. Letting go of fears is a huge liberating thing to do, and recognizing that often fear is an illusion. It's almost like the bogeyman under the bed. It's whatever, you know, and I would never ever tell someone to be brave, because I think it's about people discovering for themselves what is a fear for them, because whatever is a fear for you or me is a fear. And to be able to understand it more and to then work out ways to talk to it, work with it, and then to work out how to actually let it go. And also along with the parts of our ego that can be hard to live with, you know, the showing up when, you know, something has not worked out, you know, whether it be a relationship or whether it be a job or whether it be, you know, debt or whatever, to be able to actually, you know, be compassionate and let it go.
And but also honest as well. I think at the moment,
Yes.
With social media, there's so much kind of the Instagramming of life.
Yes.
So there's this kind of feeling of, I mean, I'm glad I'm a little bit older, because I'm like, yeah, whatever. Do you know what I mean? And within the team, we were talking about, you know, you're trying to kind of make the background look nice when you've got the kind of washing hanging behind.
Yes. Yes.
And it's just a thing of how, you know, turning up as yourself, your whole self. I mean, Brené Brown calls it kind of being wholehearted, doesn't she?
Yes. Yes.
And I think that takes a lot of courage. But what I on that journey, as you say, the more you do that, the more you adjust yourself, the more people react to you in a better way, because everyone's like, oh, we can relax now, because you're just being yourself and you're just being really real.
Yes.
And I think that the worst thing is when you can feel really lonely, is when we're all putting on a face, which, you know, is part of that thing is, can I trust that person? Am I safe with this person? So you kind of maybe keep a mask up. But the more I just am myself, the easier life becomes.
Definitely. And also, you know, one of the questions that we often ask when we're doing webinars or workshops is, you know, where would you rate yourself on your relationship with yourself?
That's
and
good.
It's amazing how that has been the question that has really stopped people in their tracks, because they're either like, I haven't got a clue what you're talking about, or they are really intrigued and curious about, where am I on a scale of 1 to 10? Where would I say I was? Am I my own best friend, or am I just overly so critical of myself that I'm, you know, further down?
Yeah.
And what can I do to increase that relationship with myself? I think that during lockdown, a lot of people have had a lot more time to reflect on who they are, and, as you said, what values they stand for as well, and thinking about that in a quite a different way, which, you know, can be exhilarating, but can also be very scary.
I mean, I think it's that thing, isn't it, about when we can use busyness to distract ourselves. We can use everything from food and alcohol and just going too busy, and then in lockdown, for me, I work a lot. I have a lot of busyness to distract myself from it, but because we've had to be quiet and can't see anyone, then all of a sudden you're left with yourself. And I think you're absolutely right, is what kind of relationship do you have with yourself? I've been doing, like you were doing, this inner work for such a long time now. And I was just saying earlier to you, wasn't I, that I was thinking, oh, maybe I'll just get there and I'll sort of enlightened. And all I find is as I become more aware of
Absolutely.
my head. And and the way I cope with that is I just have a bigger sense of humor about it. And as you say, just embracing my own ridiculous humanness that is there. So for you, what is the kind of, if there was one thing that everyone could do today differently that would help them feel braver or start to play with the art of being braver, what would it be? Just one thing that we could do differently.
I think just recognizing that fear can actually be an ally, not a kind of bully for you. And the way that we can recognize this is, first of all, just to notice, what are the parameters? Am I on the edge of my own box? Have I, got myself stuck? If I have, why might that be? Only you, as you're asking yourself that, will know that. And also to just think about being in that box and holding on to that fear. Think about it in a way that isn't being overly critical of yourself, because remember as well that we do that in order to keep ourselves safe, and that in a way it's doing it as a kind of alarm or an alert to you to say, oh, watch out for what's out there. But often what we can do is we can just get so stuck that we can, and I think that that's where there can be a disconnect, where people can sometimes feel that they're not, they're seeking happiness and they don't feel happy, or they're not feeling fulfilled, or they're just feeling bored, or they're not sure, there's just something not right. So I think just about thinking about, what are you afraid of? And what could potentially live on the other side of that fear? Especially when we strip it back. And I often do I've done a really excellent exercise over the years where it is actually about imagining your fear as whether it's a big gooey monster or your mother or your whatever. It's a bit faulty, but it's very much about thinking about, how do you talk to that fear? How can you get it on your side? How can you bring it in and say, come on, be my ally? Because also it can fire us up to be, I felt fear coming on this today. But what I did was I turned it round and I said, right, those, kind of churning stomach that I'm feeling, it's butterflies. I'm excited. I'm really looking forward to speaking to Susie. And I hope that whatever conversation we have can, plant a seed to anyone that's listening.
Yeah, and that's right. I mean, and what you're doing there is just reframing it in the moment, isn't it? And finding a new way, as you say, it's about having a relationship with yourself, but also having a new relationship with fear, whether you personify it or, which is a brilliant tool that I would definitely say works. Charley, it's been a delight to talk to you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Really inspiring work. So do check out braveyourday.com. Where you meet Charley and her team there. Plus, you can check out the fantastic website, podcast, where Charley's the host. So you can get some great interviews on that as well. So thank you so much for joining us today, Charley, and hopefully speak to you really soon as well.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye.